The Democratic Party putting its far-left agenda on full display last night during the second round of presidential debates.
Health care, in my view, is a human right, and we have got to pass a Medicare for all single-payer system.
Who here would abolish their private health insurance in favor of a government-run plan? Yeah. All right.
Raise your hand if your government plan would provide coverage for undocumented immigrants.
You cannot let people who are sick, no matter where they come from, no matter what their status, go uncovered. You can't do that.
I will release children from cages. I will get rid of the private detention centers.
Raise your hand if you think it should be a civil offense rather than a crime to cross the border without documentation. If someone is here without documents and that is their only offense, is that person to be deported?
No. That person can be a part of this great American experience.
I don't even call it climate change. It's a climate crisis.
The old ways are no longer relevant. The scientists tell us we have 12 years before there is irreparable damage to this planet. This is a global issue.
The 2020 contenders facing criticism from both sides for isolating the majority of voters with their slate of progressive policies, leaving many to declare President Trump as the winner. Check out this headline from NBC News. The winner of the first Democratic debate, Donald Trump. And here's the New York Post headline slamming Democrats with this cover, "Who wants to lose the election?" Even Trump's harshest critics are dismayed at the performances. Take, for example, David Brooks, who said this in a New York Times op-ed. The party seems to think it can win without any of the 35% of us in the moderate camp, the ones who actually delivered the 2018 midterm win. The progressive narrative is dominating in part because progressives these days have a direct and forceful story to tell and no interest in compromising it. It's dominating because no moderate wants to bear the brunt of progressive fury by opposing it. And here's Joe Scarborough looking absolutely distraught with the Democratic field.
Last night was a disaster for the Democratic Party. It is a position of every Democrat on that stage that illegal immigrants, if they cross the border illegally, should get health care for life. It is then the position of every Democrat on that stage that if they cross the border illegally, it's not even illegal anymore. But that loses Wisconsin, that loses Pennsylvania, that loses Florida, that loses North Carolina, it may lose Virginia.
And, of course, the president himself didn't miss an opportunity to pounce on his rivals from the G20 summit in Japan.
Yeah, I've been watching the debates a little bit in between meetings, and I wasn't impressed. But when you look at the socialism and you look at what it can do, that's what you're talking about there. And that's become like the Socialist Party. In fact, I heard there's a rumor the Democrats are going to change the name of the party from the Democrat Party to the Socialist Party. I'm hearing that, but let's see if they do it.
All right, Dana, did the Democrats commit political suicide the last two nights?
Well, there are 9 more debates, and I think 31 weeks before the first voting takes place at the Iowa caucuses. So I would say that if this past 2 days didn't feel too good for the Democrats, they've got some opportunities, but it's hard to make a first impression over and over again and to change people's minds. I do think that they narrowed down the field a little bit over the last 2 nights, and so I think they probably have a plausible 6 out of the 20 that were on stage. Now, there are a couple who were not on stage that will be on the next stage, like Governor Steve Bullock of Montana. I think some of these candidates will find it very hard to keep up the pretense that they have a full-time campaign that is operational. This idea that anyone can win after these last 2 nights, I think that goes away.
Who do you think your top 6 are after these two debates?
I haven't written down my top 6, but I think they're obviously your front runners: Biden, Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris. I'm going to keep Buttigieg in there, and then I think you could go with like a Booker Castro, perhaps one of the governors.
Greg, you look disgusted.
No Marianne Williamson. No Marianne Williamson, who clearly should be the front runner.
I'm the only one who read her book, Return to Love.
Yeah. Well, I don't have to read her book when I can feel her in my soul. I feel her in my very soul. It's the last night she was speaking to me and to me only that I was made of love and that I could float above the earth as a big ball of love. I'm voting for her. I'm switching parties. I don't even know if I'm in a party. Anyway, You want me to go?
Yeah, please.
Okay, policy-wise,
continue.
Policy-wise, the big problem here is that for progressive policies to survive, you have to ignore the concept of incentives. So that's how, I mean, it's great. You can support amnesty for all undocumented aliens and make it legal to cross the borders and offer huge safety nets when they get here if you don't understand the consequences of incentives, because you just incentivize everybody to come here at once. And if you thought that those caravans were a problem and the people suffering and the people dying, you wait if this ever happens, because it's just going to be crazy town. Now, to the actual debate itself, I wanted to bury my head in my hands. It sounded like a room full of obnoxious jury foremen. You know, like where the person who believes he's right on everything and they're all talking at once. And I have to blame the structure. And I know it's pointless to bring this up because no one listens. They do the same thing. They use the same format. But the format is designed to narrow substance, right? Because you have 10 people. So it gets narrow and narrow. And then it forces people to go for applause lines or gotcha lines, right? So they have it, you know, they have, and sometimes it works. Kamala's thing about the food fight worked, but it just, so you have somebody like Yang who's just kind of like, you know, he's gone.
Got less than 3 minutes to talk.
And but he should have, you know what? He didn't wear a tie.
Do you think
I thought that was a good look.
I thought it was kind of a good look too, but maybe that was it. Maybe the moderators are like, no tie, no questions.
Yeah, that's all he had was the no tie. Juan, just looking at it politically, forget about how you believe inside politically. If you're in these races, as Joe Scarborough said, in the Rust Belt, and the top of the ticket says we're going to take away your private health care and we're going to give it to illegals. Oh, yeah, and we're going to confiscate your guns and pay reparations, gay reparations, and global warming is the biggest geopolitical threat. These other senators and congressmen, they're going to have to distance themselves from the top of the Democratic ticket. It's going to be that dangerous.
If Jesse was voting, they would. But guess what? There are more Democrats in the country than Republicans. And guess what? This was a Democratic primary debate, Jesse. And most Americans, by the way, agree with those people on stage about Medicare for all, about helping young people to pay for their education.
You're wrong.
Just look at the polls. It's not about me.
Juan,
I'm just telling you, look at the
200
facts.
people have private health care. You're saying all of those people say, yeah, let's take it away and give it to the government?
Dana has made this point to me time and again, that once you say Medicare for all, yes, it's very popular, but then you start taking away, and then there's lots of arguments. But the premise is Republicans have nothing, zero, in terms of repeal and replace after 2 years of all Republicans in the House and Senate and a Republican White House. No solutions, no help.
You're comfortable with these positions these Democrats are taking.
I love listening because it's so interesting to me to see this. It's almost like a civic exercise. Oh, this is how Republicans saw a debate that attracted, I believe, was 17 million or 15 million on Wednesday, 17 million yesterday. It set a record in that sense. Just a tremendous success.
What record did it set?
But let me just finish
for Democrats, maybe. Not for Republicans. Republicans got more. I remember that.
No. Republicans.
24 million.
This is a record for Democrats. I keep saying this thing. This is a Democratic debate, you guys.
Which is why
here's the
talk of incentives.
It just strikes me that when you have a situation where you have a Democratic primary and you have Democrats speaking to their supporters, it's a success. And I think, you know, Yang was the biggest disappointment. I thought he was going to be a breakout star there. He was not. He had nothing. Marianne Williamson, I'm not sure why she's on the stage, but I got to tell you something. So many people today were like talking about Marianne Williamson.
All right, Katie.
Everyone's Googling her. Yeah, they want to know where she came from.
Juan seems to think by saying if you like your health care, you can't keep your health care. It's going to help Democrats in 2020.
So a lot of the polling shows that Democrats want someone who can beat Donald Trump. What we saw over the past 2 nights is not the way to do it. When you're talking about stripping 250 million people in America, which is the majority of the country, of their private insurance, and then turning right around and saying, but illegal aliens are going to get health insurance on your backs, and you're going to pay for it, that's a problem. Democrats, I'm not sure how they reconcile this idea of trying to make an argument about the working class and the economy while pushing factory-killing climate change plans. Also, how do they reconcile promoting illegal immigration while also saying that they're for the working class and raising the minimum wage and raising wages when illegal immigration suppresses those wages? That's going to be a huge problem. And when Democrats stand up and they all raise their hand and say we want health insurance paid for by taxpayers, including for abortion for illegal aliens. The question becomes, who are they really standing up for? And President Trump has been very good about talking directly to people and saying, I'm standing up for Americans, I'm standing up for you. And Democrats seem to be trying to split this conversation about, well, we're for the American worker, but we're also for all these people who have come here legally and broken the laws, which, by the way, we don't think should be laws anymore.
Maybe they're standing up for American values. Maybe it's the case that the incentive, you guys think it's an incentive
open borders
to say,
and no sovereignty is an American
by the way, nobody's
value?
saying open borders
are not
but
American.
the incentive, you say the incentive is, because they might get health care here.
No,
first, there are like
healthcare.
10 or 11 million people already
There's
here
22
in
million
our mix.
people here.
And then the second thing is the real reason that they're leaving is not because of any incentive here. The real reason is about
Why do they go back
the
when our
front door is
economy,
open
when our
and they get
economy
to
sucks
stay?
and leave? So I guess that's not an incentive?
Hey, listen, Juan seems to think they're on track, so let them.
Thank you.
Donald Trump's the centrist now, all right? Look what you did.